Welcome to the Cool Fam Podcast. This is your host Otto, aka AutoZone. We don't have Drift here today, but it's gonna be all right because we got our first guest here today. We have a real live weapon. His name is Nick Compton. He's an MMA fighter pro. How you doing today?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
I know, bro. Thanks for coming by. So let's jump right into it, man. MMA. So I'm sure you've seen the fights today. That main event. Were you surprised by the results?
No. I was kind of pulling for Oliveira, but I knew that the challenger, I can't even pronounce his name.
Yeah,
But
Islam.
yeah, Islam. He's known to do just what he did
Yeah.
earlier today to everybody. He's a special fighter for sure.
Khabib Jr. right there.
Absolutely.
It might be something different. Not different from what he does, but he might dominate.
He looked really good on the feet too, and that's where he surprised me. He was able to nullify Charles's pressure, and actually had Charles backing up. And you don't see that from Charles very often. He's usually like a Terminator coming forward.
Yeah, he
And,
doesn't stop.
No, he comes forward and he puts strikes together, and Islam was able to shut that down for the most part. So it was pretty impressive.
Yeah, I think he must have just got stung right away or something because something just wasn't right afterwards. And, they both well skilled on the floor. And,
Yeah.
I feel like one of those punches just hit Charles just right enough where it was a wrap for the rest of the fight.
Well, you'll see in like a lot of Charles's fights, especially recently, he's able to take a shot to the chin and he'll fall to his back in hopes of you coming in aggressively to attack him while he's on his back because he knows how good he is from his back.
Oh, yeah.
But with Islam, he's not afraid to come down there with him like the previous fighters were. They would ask. I mean, they wouldn't ask. They would just literally step back and force Charles to stand back up because they were so afraid of that ground game. Islam's not like that. He's like, okay, you want to flop to your back? Perfect. I'll get on top of you, and I'm just going to dominate you on top. And that's kind of what happened. Then he ended up getting a submission. So
Yeah, I mean that's his strength is wrestling.
absolutely.
Khabib Jr. I feel like I don't know. I just feel like something happened when he was on top, or when they were standing up. That obviously Charles was comfortable on his back, but I think something happened at the stand up that kind of just dictated that fight for the rest of the fight.
Yeah, he got tagged one good time by Islam. I think it was a straight left hand, and did what he usually does. Falls to the ground and hopes that you try to come in and play that game. And Islam had no problem coming down there and doing what he does, controlling him, wearing him down, and eventually getting that arm triangle, which
Oh man,
pretty impressive. Absolutely.
yeah, what
impressive.
a way to lose that one. The record holder for the most submissions.
Yeah.
See to
Yeah.
lose by submission is one. It's definitely ironic right there.
Yeah, and sometimes the guys who can do something really well, uh, they have a lot of success with that, and then they run into a guy who can do what they do just better. And I think
Yeah.
that's what you saw today. You saw Islam just kind of show that he's the better on the ground, and
Yeah.
Charles was going into it the better guy on the feet, and he wasn't able to capitalize on those exchanges on the feet. So there you go,
Yes,
new
yeah.
champ and a new reign. I don't know who's gonna be able to stop that guy.
Yeah, I
But,
don't know either, but
yeah.
it's gonna be something
Absolutely.
to see in the future. But let's go into your career. When did you start? When did you start fighting?
I started fighting in 2011, the beginning of 2011. I still remember my first professional fight was in January of 2011.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was nervous to say the least.
Yeah. First pro fight. I mean, what was the outcome of that fight?
Well, I lost a really close decision. A lot of people thought I won that fight, but didn't go my way. It was quite the learning experience. It was my first professional fight, and I was also the main event on that card.
Oh wow.
Downtown Minneapolis at a nightclub known as Epic Nightclub.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I've heard it.
Yep. So it was just a lot. It was a lot for my first fight, and but I learned a lot too. So
Okay.
it was necessary.
How many amateur fights did you do
Uh,
before becoming pro?
I had two.
Two.
So
Oh, you jumped right into it.
yeah, I was 28 when I turned professional. I was going fast because I knew that my window of time was smaller than the typical fighter going into it, you know. So if I would have told you that I was still going to be able to do it at 41, I would have slowed things down. But hindsight's 2020, right? So it's like, well, you know, at that time, I didn't see myself doing this into my 40s.
Right.
So I was going fast.
Okay. So how many fights are you in now?
I have, let's see, got about 25 professional MMA fights. I have 7 professional boxing fights.
Ooh. Which so you pretty much favor. Would you ever consider just sticking to one or the other? Or you kind of like the being versatile between boxing and MMA?
You know, boxing was something that I kind of started to do to gain experience, but that changed when COVID hit. MMA opportunities were far and few between, and being that I was old and dangerous, I was getting turned down a lot for fights in MMA. So in order to continue to compete, I had to go into boxing because there was plenty of fights and opportunities in boxing for me. Yeah. Especially they see an older MMA guy and they're like, all right, this is going to be a good little tune-up for our prospect, you know. And my job was to come in and try to spoil that, you know. And I did that a couple times. Judges aren't very friendly to me in the boxing world, so I've, in my opinion, got robbed a couple times. But you know, all great learning experiences, though.
That's good, though. That's good. Did you ever foresee before going into MMA? Did you ever think about it beforehand, or what made you go that route?
You know, when I was younger, I can still remember I was like 13 or something like that, and I was at the video store and I saw the VHS. This is back. Yeah, I'm aging myself right here, dating it. But yeah, there was these VHSs in the UFC 1, UFC 2, UFC 3, and I'm like, wow, is this real? Because I was a pro wrestling fan, and I'm like, is this like a different version of pro wrestling? No, it was real fighting, no rules, and I'm like, man, I got to see this. So I brought them home, watched them, and I was like, man, I would love to try this sometime, you know, just because it seemed like the ultimate form of competition. There's no hoops, no nets, no balls, no, just you and another man, and like the truth is gonna come out on like, you know, who can win in that contest.
Right.
Yeah.
See whoever's arm is raised at the end. So.
Absolutely. You know, and but I was an athlete, baseball, football, basketball, and that kind of just took over. And there wasn't really any opportunity. I didn't know where to go to learn. You know, I didn't know where to go.
Right. So you didn't really have like those connections to kind of lead you there earlier, to get you, you know, kind of started early in your career, I guess.
Exactly. There wasn't any of that. You know, this is when the sport wasn't very popular at all. Obviously,
right.
You know, UFC 1, 2, and 3. I mean, the sport was banned in many states.
Yeah.
They only could do it in like a handful of states because it was just looked at as human cockfighting and too brutal.
Right.
For a lot of people to either allow it and or take it serious. You know, so
yeah, it's definitely a dangerous sport. So.
Yeah, definitely is. It is. You know, and it's definitely grown as I thought it would. And here it is now, a major sport on ESPN and everywhere, you know.
Definitely major. What would you say are your strengths?
When it comes to MMA, I would say my strengths are boxing and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Most of my fights that I finished have been by submission, and that's typically because once the opponent feels me touch their face with my hands,
Yeah.
they're gonna want to take me down. And honestly, wrestling's my weakness when it comes to all the skill sets. So I, especially early on, would get taken down a lot. But then when they take me down, I would use their aggression against them and end up slapping on an armbar or triangle or guillotine or work my way to their back and get a finish by choke. Yeah.
Have you ever been knocked out?
Never have been knocked out, and I pride myself on that. I've had over 30 professional fights with MMA and boxing. I've never been put out in practice or in the cage or in a ring.
Nice.
I have been TKO'd once by a friend of mine now. At the time, we weren't friends, but yeah, he actually fractured my orbital, and my eye. I went like my eye just shut off. It went blind because of nerve damage. I don't know. It was weird, and I freaked out and just covered up. Tried to defend myself, but the ref did the right thing and stopped the fight because I just couldn't see out of my left eye.
Oh man!
And I still have numbness right here in my face from that strike. Yeah, to this day. It took a long time for feeling to come back in my teeth and my gums because this whole side of my face pretty much went numb from that elbow. Yeah, it was a brutal elbow. But yeah, I have been stopped once, but he didn't put me out though.
Okay, so mostly everything that you would say your lost decision.
Yep, I've lost my decision in every fight except for 2. So I got TKO'd once with that broken orbital, and then I got I think it was a Darce choke. Yeah, I got choked once, and honestly, I was exhausted. It was a title fight. This man wrestled me for four rounds.
Jeez, that's your weakness.
Well, and the thing is like I'm typically really confident down there. Like I don't care how good of a wrestler you are. I'm gonna find my way on your neck. I'm gonna get to your neck, and if I don't finish, I'm gonna use it to be able to get back to my feet. But this dude, he's a special fighter too. His name Alex Gilpin. Now, not many people know who this guy is, but he was in the PFL's $1 Million tournament on ESPN, and he worked his way up through that and almost won that $1 million. I think he got to the finals and lost to a guy very similar to him. But he's a tremendous fighter, and yeah, he caught me. I was exhausted trying to get back to my feet, and he slapped that choke on, and we went back down to the mat, and I had there's like this. You have these little thoughts in your head to yourself, like, and I knew, like, there's no way out of this. I'm gonna have to go ahead and tap on this one, and like honestly, like, it was partial fatigue as well. It's easier to choke somebody when they can't breathe already.
Oh, yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now they're putting on a blood choke. Now it's a wrap.
You ever thought of like just because I've seen some guys just not tap and just maybe it's the ego, maybe it's just they don't have the energy to tap.
I've always thought that I wouldn't tap to a submission either,
Oh, wow.
But I did that day. So anyone can get caught. Anyone can get caught for sure. Ooh. But yeah, I can still remember these things thinking back on it like it was yesterday. So that's a good sign.
So fighting now at the age that you are now, and that you pride yourself on not being knocked out or anything, do you think because you've never been really knocked out like that, do you think that's your motivation to keep going?
That's not really the motivation to keep going for me. I just love to compete, and I've always been a good athlete. I wouldn't say, there's levels to that, but I would say I just love the competition, man. I'm a very competitive person. I don't care if we're playing video games, cards, basketball, which I used to play every day of my life growing up. It doesn't matter what it is. I'm going to try to win, and I'm going to be mad if I lose. Very mad. It's hard for me to let it go. I'm like, we got to play again. We keep running this back.
Oh, man.
So I'm one of those guys. It's like I just love to compete. And when I'm in the gym and I'm going against these younger guys that are half my age sometimes,
right.
I'm still having a lot of success. That's what keeps me wanting to continue to compete and fight at a high level because I know I can. I still got it. It's just when you get to a certain level in any athletic endeavor, the competition goes up. and that's where I'm at. I'm right below the UFC and fighting for a company that provides the UFC a lot of its talent,
Right.
and they're all studs from all over the country and world. I fought guys from all over the world, just beasts, and so I've had more losses than wins as of recently, but that's just due to the competition and little things that I've been working on to not allow those to happen again.
Okay. So what would your advice be for anybody that's wanting to join and get into that same sport?
I would say start off with wrestling. I would say, and the thing is uh, that base right there is gonna instill mental toughness. It's also going to uh, teach you about the weight cutting aspect of the sport, and you get used to the grind of what it's really gonna be. Yeah, it looks really cool from the outside looking in, but um, the grind is serious and it's
Different.
real. It's different, and unless you've actually experienced it, it's hard to explain. Um,
Yeah.
it's tough, but I enjoy it, so that's why I'm still doing it. But yeah, definitely wrestling. Uh, that's the best building block in my opinion for the sport of MMA, because if you're the superior wrestler, guess who gets to dictate where the fight takes place?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right? So if I'm the wrestler and you're not, and we're gonna fight, if I feel uncomfortable on the feet at any time, I'm just gonna take you down, right?
Yeah, if you're
And
able to hold them down.
exactly, and then you can wear them out as well. And then you teach that guy, which would be the next thing would be striking of some kind. I would say Muay Thai is probably the most effective art form when it comes to striking of any martial art, because you're using all your limbs, all your weapons, and you know, elbows and knees. They're important
Oh
in
yeah.
MMA. They're my favorite tools more than punching. I
Oh, they're
prefer
sharp.
elbow. Yeah, elbows and knees, man. All my knockouts are by elbow.
Ooh.
I only have a couple, but they're by my elbows. So that is definitely the best from what I have experienced tools to use.
Oh man,
Muay Thai.
that's gotta hurt. It's gotta hurt a lot. Um, who would who have you looked up to any like UFC fighters or anything like that? Do you have like a favorite that you like?
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, my first coach, David Manet, was the first UFC middleweight champion. He was definitely he's a legend of the sport, and doesn't really get the notoriety because he was so before the
Right.
explosion of the sport on the scene. But he's definitely one of the goats that doesn't get the just due credit that he deserves. And there's guys like that from those old days that I really look up to. When I first got into it, like Dave, like Matt Hughes. These are guys that not only were great fighters, but they're from the Midwest as well. You know what I mean? So, also Sean Sherk from the Academy. He's a former world champion in the UFC from my gym. So yeah, there's just like guys like that, and then to the newer age guys, GSP is definitely a guy that I looked up to because he he was one of those guys that he can do it all extremely
Yeah.
well, and whatever he needs to do against a specific guy, he's gonna do it.
Yeah, he was one of my favorites.
Yeah, I mean, there was a fight where I'll never forget where he uh, won the fight with his jab against Josh Koscheck, and
Just
just
kept jabbing
yes, it was beautiful. It was a beautiful performance, and that's when I'm like, wow, man, this guy, he's something else. I would say he's the greatest of all time.
Oh man, like
Yeah,
his physique, like he was just overwhelming and overpowering. And
yeah, he could do it all. He could do it all. Whatever he needed to do to win, he could do.
man, yeah, and hearing his story too. Um, I don't know if you watched that, like just how he grew up and everything. It was bad. Like he was always bullied, everything, and
Yeah,
now he just became this, this big weapon guy like that. Now he can just pretty much dominate, and win. And he ended up actually meeting the guy that's always bullying him that in school and everything growing up, and uh, it was just on good terms. Like he never had any beef with him or anything, and I think the guy like feared him a little bit, but he actually just wanted to say hi or something, and
yeah,
and helped him out too.
I heard that story. that's just a good example of like what martial arts can teach this person.
Yeah.
Just because you have these tools and you're capable of doing these things, you can still be the better person. You
Right.
don't. You don't. You
Real
know.
humble.
Yeah.
And just,
It teaches humility.
yeah.
Once I started fighting and training every day, I had I didn't have any confrontations.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just because I didn't feel the need to exert myself that way towards anyone. I would probably back down more times than not, unless someone tries to hit me and defend myself. But other than that, like, it teaches you a lot of things other than just the skills themselves. A lot of life lessons involved in it. I would recommend anyone put their kid in wrestling or some form of a martial art. Definitely.
Okay. Because from the outside looking in, you would think like a lot of these guys, like just meatheads, macho, just think they're just rude, mean, just want to just hurt people. But in all reality, it's not the case. Is it?
No, I mean, there's always going to be those guys who are like that. I've met them. I've been at shows and seen guys like that. But typically, when you get to a certain level in this sport, those guys wash out. Most of those guys don't get to the higher levels, and because it's a thinking man's game.
Right.
Once you get to a certain like level, it's just not just I'm just gonna go after this guy and kick his. You know what? There's a lot of. It's a very. It's like chess. We're playing chess in there. And you got to think to do that.
Yeah.
You can't just go after somebody blindly, and But though, yeah, there's always going to be those guys who are super aggressive guys that aren't the nicest, but most of us are.
Yeah, that's good to see. Yeah, it's definitely a lot of strategy, and speaking of strategy, how was your going into a fight? Obviously, how do you prepare?
Well, preparation in a training camp is 6 days a week. I'm training, 1 day of recovery, uh, typically twice a day. I'm training. Now everyone has their own ways of doing this, but yeah, I'm typically training twice a day, 6 days a week. And twice a day doesn't necessarily mean that I'm skill training twice a day, or it's usually one. I'm doing some skill training, but then the second workout might be strength and conditioning. It might be just cardio, just me going for runs and swims, biking. Yeah, so it's pretty intense. The diet changes as well as I get closer to the fight.
Got to make the weight.
Yeah, so that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah, how difficult is that? Like, have you ever not made weight?
Yeah, I missed weight for 2 boxing fights. I've never missed weight for an MMA fight.
Okay.
That's honestly, that purely comes down to discipline. You know what I mean? And if you don't make weight, and as a professional, number one, you're going to get docked your pay.
Ooh.
So that money, there's a percentage of your, if the fight even still takes place, because it's really up to your opponent at that point. You've put the cards in their hands. As far as like, if you miss weight, they don't have to fight you now. So, but a lot of people want to, because they put all this preparation in and for this fight, and then you didn't hold up your end of the bargain. Well, then they're going to want some of your money. So that's what comes next, a negotiation process. And typically in boxing, there's a negotiation process on how much of a percentage of your fight purse money is going to go to them now because you missed weight.
Oh wow.
Yeah, in MMA, typically that negotiation there isn't like a negotiation for money for the opponent. But for instance, if you're fighting for a title, you have to make that weight flat. If you don't make that weight flat, then you cannot be the champion. So you can still fight the fight, but you won't get that belt. Similar to why Charles Oliveira was not technically the champion going into this fight today, because he didn't make 155 flat in his previous fight.
And so there's no aside from like being a champion, is there like a leeway of how much?
Yes, typically, I'm a lightweight. I fight at 155 pounds. That means I get a 1 pound allowance in most states, so I can go up to 156 flat.
Okay.
So you get that 1 pound leeway to make that weight. I used to fight at featherweight, 145. I would never do that again. I'm just too old to be going down that low.
Yeah.
But that was rough making 145 flat to be because I actually won a championship at 45 back in the day, and that was wow. I don't miss those days.
Yeah.
It was tough.
So you said you had the championship at featherweight?
Yes, at 145 pounds, I won a title for the biggest promotion in the state of Minnesota at that time. They are still probably the biggest promotion. They just go by a different name now.
Yeah.
But I won a 145 pound featherweight championship here in Minnesota. This was a while ago, back when I was fighting at featherweight. So that was tough to make. It was the first time I ever had to make 145, and I had to make it flat. And then I had to fight a 5-round fight, and that guy was really tough. So we went for all 5 rounds.
Yeah.
I fought him for 25 minutes. So I definitely earned that belt.
Oh man, what's it like being a champion? Like, how do you is being a champion? What's your preparation as a champion? Different from being a challenger.
Oh man, I did defend that belt once before I stepped away from that promotion and moved on to other things, bigger things at the time. Just anytime you're going into a title fight, you're training for 5 rounds instead of 3.
Right.
MMA fight is typically 3 5-minute rounds. For a title, it's 5 5-minute rounds. So now you're talking about an extra 10 minutes of fighting. Well, you got to be prepared for that. So that means the training has to be more intense and longer. You just got to push yourself more.
A lot more cardio and a lot more probably, I guess, conditioning.
Absolutely, just more mat time, and typically, that's gonna take place in a 6 to 8 week camp. So that's gonna be the preparation time needed for a 5-round fight.
Oh man. Do you have any kids or
No children. I married the sport of MMA.
Hey.
And I really did. Once I started doing this is what I did. I went all in with it. And that's what I would suggest anybody. If you're gonna do something, you got to go all the way with it. Don't half step, especially in something like this where like you're really subjecting yourself to like being hurt.
Yeah.
Something like this. You definitely want to make sure that you're doing your very best to be ready for this.
So is there any young guys that you kind of like you're a mentor for that you want to see succeed and,
Yeah, absolutely. There's guys at the gyms that I've trained at that are younger and up and coming, hungry guys that I'm always trying to, more times than not, I'm leading by example, just being the most hardworking guy in the room. That's always just been my MO. I'm going to outwork people. And when the younger guys see how hard I'm working, even at 41 years old,
right,
they got no excuse.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Come on now.
Yeah,
You're getting outworked by 40, a guy in his 40s. That means you gotta step it up. And I learned from some like I said, some great people on what it really takes. So I was lucky in that regard. So hopefully they just see how I do things, and they take that and implement it in their own preparation and understand that you can't cut corners in this.
Yeah.
You just got to do it all as best as you can.
You think you ever thought about trying to get into the UFC, or right now you just kind of
I've had some short notice calls in the past when I was on winning streaks where like my name was in the hat, you know what I mean, for short notice fights in the UFC, and I beat guys who fought in the UFC, and I've lost a guy, you know what I mean? It's just one of those things where opportunity presents itself. I'm going to say yes, but you have to be in a certain position in your career to get that call. I'm coming off a loss, so 9 times out of 10, you're not getting a UFC call unless you're on a big winning streak.
Yeah.
You know, and I've been in those positions, like I said in the past, where like, you know, uh, it was evident that like whoever wins this fight is going right,
Yeah.
and like I've come up short on a couple of those situations where I knew and the opponent knew whoever wins this fight is probably going to get the call, and they did. They always did. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, that's just how it goes sometimes, man. You come up short in a decision, the other guy gets the nod. You know, that's how it goes.
And what is there a loss that kind of just really devastated you?
They're all tough.
I mean, there's
But
some.
ones that stand out definitely. Like for instance, I fought a dude in his backyard in Salt Lake City, Utah, and we were both on a long winning streaks, and we both knew that whoever wins this fight is going to go to the UFC next. They're going to get that call, and he did. He beat me by decision, and then he got the call, and he fought Max Holloway on short notice.
Man.
And his next fight, you know, if I win that fight, and it was a really, really great fight, I probably would have been fighting Max Holloway. But so yeah, it happens. You know, that one stands out. Not only that, but I got like 14 stitches in my eye in that fight. Like it was just a war. It was a war of a fight, and he's a tough dude. He's still kicking butt. That dude is Clay Collard is his name, and he actually just beat Anthony Pettis in the Pro Fighters League. Very, very tough fighter.
Yeah, Anthony Pettis was actually he was a champion.
Yeah, he was a great all-time, one of the all-time greats.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So yeah, I got that fight definitely. I'm trying to think. Was there any other fights? Well, I fought Evander Holyfield's son in boxing.
Oh wow.
On Showtime for Premier Boxing Championship, and he was very fast hands, really good fighter. I thought I did enough to win the fight, man. It was a great fight, but obviously I wasn't just fighting Evan Holyfield. I was fighting the son of Evander Holyfield.
Yeah.
So I knew that the judges weren't probably going to go in my favor if it was close, and it was close, and he got it. He got the decision. But that was another one that rubs me wrong just because it was a great. I fought great, you know, just wasn't able to put him down, you know.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of with boxing, I think with anything combat, I guess you just got to either take them down, you know, put them out. If not,
yeah, you leave it in the people's hands that probably have never competed before.
Yeah,
they're just going by certain criteria, and or what they're seeing, and a lot of them don't even know what they're seeing. To be honest,
man. How does that? I know that must drive you nuts.
Absolutely. I mean, we all watch. I mean, a lot of us watch boxing fights and MMA fights, and you're scratching your head after about how the judges came up with that decision. Well, there's a lot of politics involved in fighting as well. That's the side of the sport that
I don't think anybody likes to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's just part of it. That's like the dark side of the sport because there's a lot of money involved. So anytime there's a lot of money involved, there's always going to be some funny business going on.
Man, that's tough. I know you went against one of my buddies, Damien.
Oh yeah.
Was it a split?
Yeah, that was a split decision early in our careers. I think I was 3-1 at the time. You know, that was another good learning experience. That was a good fight. I had my moments. He had his moments. Could have went either way, definitely. Yeah. We were scheduled to fight again for King of the Cage. I'm trying to think. I don't remember when, but I had just won a fight in King of the Cage, and then they offered me a multi-fight deal and wanted me to fight for their title. And they picked Damien to be my opponent to fight for that title. And I said yes to it, but then for whatever reason, Damien couldn't do it or whatever. And then I ended up not fighting for King of the Cage again anyway because I was asking for a clause in the contract that if the UFC was to call me and offer me a fight, that I could get out of the contract, and that wasn't in the contract, and then they weren't going to change that contract, so I didn't fight for them again.
Wow, damn.
Yeah.
Yes. With him, he was always street fights, and then, I just kind of introduced him to my dad and got him into, more, obviously in the ring and more professional to make it more, that way he's not getting in trouble.
Yeah, Damien is very, very talented.
Yeah.
Very talented dude. And another guy who people got to put respect on his name in Minnesota, because he's another guy who crossed over into boxing and fought pretty much whoever that
he
they
doesn't
put.
care.
Pretty much whoever that they would offer him, and you got to respect that. I mean, that means he's a true fighter for sure.
Is there anybody that you want? Either is there a fight that you want happen? Like, is there an opponent that you really want, or is there a rematch that you would want?
Anyone who's ever beat me, I want those rematches. That's how I am.
Well, I mean, most of them are decisions, so I guess you can,
absolutely. So it's like I don't even. Sometimes you feel I didn't really lose, but you did lose. So that's just how it goes. So yeah, any guy that I've ever took a L to, I would love to have those rematches, especially the most recent ones. Like the last guy I lost to, I didn't take any damage. I got held down for 3 rounds. It was one of those fights where it's happened to me in the past, and it sucks that it happened again, but it was a snoozer. It wasn't even entertaining. And that's one thing I also pride myself on, is like when I get in the cage and they lock the door, I want people to be excited to watch me fight. I want them to be like, hey, this dude's going to go for the kill in here. He's going to try to he's not going to just try to point fight or lay and pray somebody. You know what I mean? And not to say that the last opponent was just trying to lay and pray, because he was trying to advance position, but there was no damage done, and it was just disappointing, because I want to at least feel like I was in a fight.
Yeah, instead of just a wrestling match.
Right.
I mean,
but he did what he had to do to win the fight. They knew what they had to do, and they did it. But yeah, this next one in December, I'm definitely not going to let that happen again. That's for sure.
Are you ready for it?
I will be when it's time. I got a lot of, I'm just starting to get back into training camps. I mean, back into training, and then get this training camp started. So I'm really looking forward to it, because this has been a busy year for me. I've had some ups and downs, but I'm ready to finish this year on a high note for sure. Yeah, I'm excited.
We're hoping for you. You know his strengths and weaknesses? You know what he likes to do?
Since I haven't signed the contract yet, I don't want to say who it is, but I can say that his last fight was on the UFC Contender Series show. Very tough dude. They're all tough. At this point in my career, I mean, I can't even remember the last time I fought somebody with a losing record. It's been probably 10 years.
Man.
So, like, everybody's going to be good, and he's good. He's a stud. So, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a good challenge, and I'm going to be ready for sure.
Where's this taking place?
This will be in Houston, Texas.
Okay.
For Fury Fighting Championships on UFC Fight Pass.
All right. So we definitely got to tune in on that. What day is that?
I think their shows are typically on Sunday nights.
Sunday, and you said December?
December 18th is the tentative date. Like I said, I haven't signed a contract. I verbally agreed.
Yeah.
So I don't even like saying stuff unless it's signed, but we're here, and I already did, so here we are.
Yeah.
So,
hey, at least it's something to kind of look for until everything is signed in, and then we can lock in and watch that.
Absolutely. Everyone tune in. It's going to be a good show. They always put on good shows, definitely.
Oh yeah, I'm hoping to see that one. Is there anything you have any plans outside of fighting, like when it comes time?
Yeah, I'm definitely going into the coaching realm. I enjoy teaching. I enjoy helping people improve the quality of their lives just through fitness in general, let alone fighting or martial arts. Just I've worked in that capacity for years now, as far as just helping everyday people get into shape, and then teach them, and then the process, them learning something like boxing or jiu-jitsu, which is it's all good, good stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely, I think, a mental mental strength for every person. I think like just get yourself stronger mentally, physically, but it how would you say what's the word yeah, I can't really put it into words, but I guess just better yourself.
Yeah, yeah. Um, there's just so many great things that come out of training. Like self-esteem goes up. You feel good, you feel better.
Yeah,
You're learning something new. There's just a lot of really good, all good things. That's why I'm always very encouraging to people once they get started to just keep going, even though some days aren't always going to be 5-star days where like you go in there, you're not feeling it, or you're dragging butt a little bit. Just
yeah.
keep coming. Just keep coming back. It's gonna get better.
All
It's
right.
always gonna get better.
What keeps you motivated? Keep you going.
Um, what keeps me motivated? I just have a
I know you like competition. You just
yeah.
have that fire,
Yeah,
but
exactly. I was just gonna say, you just took the words out of my mouth. There's just like a burning. There's just like a inner something inside me that's always. There's a fire still. There's just a fire to compete, and there's always uh, me wanting to have get that next win. Like
yeah,
I'm always chasing that next win, and you know, there's nothing like that feeling.
yeah.
I haven't been able to find anything else that can touch that feeling of like accomplishment after all that preparation and blood and sweat in the gym
Yeah,
to get your hand raised like that and
that's
under
gotta
those
be an
lights.
ultimate feeling.
It is an amazing feeling, man. And it's that's why guys end up fighting longer than they probably should.
Oh.
Because it's like it's something that's hard to find in anywhere else.
Yeah,
And you can even see, like for instance, I just read something where like Le'Veon Bell's fighting Uriah
yeah. See,
Hall,
yeah, seen
and
that.
he just knocked out Adrian Peterson. They did that. They do those like celebrity fights and
Right.
stuff. And he said, he's done so many great things in football, but nothing compared to that feeling of when he knocked out Adrian and got his hand raised.
He
And he's a former NFL player. You know
he's
what I
actually
mean?
back.
Yeah.
He's back in the NFL. Like he's just signed with a team, and
Did he?
now yeah.
Oh wow,
and
that's
and he has a fight too coming up, and I'm
wow. Well, I didn't know that, but that just shows you like it's just a different thing, man, and it's I'm yeah I can't get enough of it. I'm still doing it, and I'm 41, so it tells you I enjoy it. I enjoy the competition, and I enjoy it. I still enjoy the preparation to a point, not
yeah,
as much as I used to, because the only difference now is it just takes longer to recover from the workouts. My body doesn't pop back as fast as it used to when it comes to like pushing it to that red line or past that point of failure. You
Is
know,
there a certain point where you feel like has there been a point where you felt like just kind of walking away, or do you feel like there's a time where you know it's time to walk away?
yeah, I've definitely have had those conversations with myself. As far as when is the end for you? When do you really want to just be done doing this?
Yeah,
Um, and at this point, I just take them one at a time. Just see how this one goes, and then I'll reevaluate after it's over with. You know what I mean?
I feel
You know what I mean?
w-
It's hard to say. I never say never, because maybe I'll do great and I'll like
right.
knock this guy out, and then I'm like feeling really great about it and want to do it again. So
Well, I mean,
who
it's kind of
knows?
hard to stop from a win.
Exactly. But then it's a double edged sword, and you lose. You're like, I can't go out like that.
Right.
So yeah, you just uh, I also have told people that are close to me, like, hey man, if you start seeing me really be honest with me, if you start seeing me slow down in the gym, you start seeing me get caught with stuff I used to not get caught with, especially striking, be honest with me and just tell me, and then I'll know
Yeah.
if I've like lost a real step. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's when you probably should um, be done. And I haven't. I really don't believe I have. I know opinions vary, but I would say I haven't.
I feel it. I feel it.
And if they're not in my inner circle, I don't really give give a shit what they have to say.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, you got to keep your circle tight. Is there anything like I guess I would say, because you know that fire just keeps burning, but sometimes is there anything like in your childhood or anything that really created that ignition that
Oh, definitely. You know, like my upbringing wasn't an easy one. You know, I grew up in my early days, North Minneapolis. So I was fighting all the time.
yeah.
Just because that was just how it was. You know, back then we used to throw hands. Nowadays the kids ain't throwing hands.
Oh yeah, yeah.
They're packing. You know, it's a whole different place than it was back then. It was still rough, but it wasn't like it is now. You know, but yeah, I grew up fighting a lot. You know, and then I moved to the my mom moved us out of the north side and into the suburbs, Brooklyn Park here, and this was different then too. It was there was still
scenery.
Yeah, it was still like farms and stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, when I found sports and I found outlets, that's what changed for me. That's what helped me come out of like that mentality of being fighting and stuff. You know, football, basketball, baseball were a big part of my life.
Okay. What was the first sport?
Football. So yeah, I played for Jordan Park in North Minneapolis. Was the first year I ever played football organized.
Okay.
And we had a really good team. And like after that, I really enjoyed football, especially being on the defensive side and getting it like
what position?
Smack people around. I played safety. I played.
Oh yeah, you must have been flying and hitting.
Oh yeah, I was reckless, dude. I was reckless as a kid when it came to football. Yeah, I used to get yelled at by my coaches. Don't lead with your helmet, because I was just, I was on one out there. So definitely.
That physicality from, I guess, football was help.
Absolutely.
I guess that's the connection to MMA.
It's
that physicality.
Yep.
Oh,
definitely.
man.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I was the smallest, like, if not the smallest, like one of the smallest dudes always on my team all the way up through school. I played football for like 8 years.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so I was always one of the smallest, but I definitely try to make up for that with my hitting, man. Definitely. I definitely like to hit.
All right. Any major injuries?
As far as fighting goes, and in general, man, I've had lots of broke multiple fractured noses. Like I said, an orbital break, fingers, toes, torn shoulder. More stitches than I could ever count. Which that's just normal.
Aside from your orbital bone, is there anything that kind of like really lingers to this day that kind of? No.
You know, I've been pretty durable. However, just the overall like wear and tear on the body from all the years of training every day,
right,
or most days, I definitely feel it. Definitely, it's like I said, it just takes longer to bounce back.
Yeah, I mean, this guy says he's 41. He can't even tell. But
yeah.
You said December 18th, or no, December 18th.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, December 18th. All right. Hopefully, hopefully the contract comes through.
Yep.
Yeah. Hopefully we get to be able to watch you fight.
Yeah.
Watch that. We're definitely gonna tune in on that. We're gonna go ahead and call this a wraps. Anybody? So it's nice talking to you, man.
Yeah.
It's nice getting you in. Hearing your side of this, hearing your story and how your upbringing, how things are going, and also your future.
Yeah, I'm not done yet.
Well.
Definitely, I got this fight coming up. And then I'm gonna take it from there. But I definitely plan on winning. Thanks for having me on, man. It's been a good time.
Yeah, no problem, man. You guys can find us on Cool Fam Podcast on Spotify and Apple. So tune in. You can listen to Nick talk, hear his story. But yeah. Thanks for coming in, man.
Absolutely.